around or being available for you to get some note cards to write questions on and then to turn them in. Do we have any people with note cards out there? Any league members or exchange members who are willing to hand out note cards? There's some. Who else? Who else has got them? Pat Mansard has some. So if you're interested in preparing a question for candidates, see those ladies or other members of the league so that you can get a card and write your question. The questions will go through the league members to make sure that we don't have any duplicates, and they might be reworded for clarity, but they will then be coming up here to be read after the panelists are through with theirs. The way the responses to the questions will work is that the person who answers the question initially will have between 1 and 2 minutes, and then we will have a chance for a series of responses or rebuttals. The candidates will go back and forth, and each response or rebuttal will be allowed about 30 seconds or so. Then there's also the possibility, after the candidates have talked themselves out about that particular issue, that the questioner on the panel will have a chance for a follow-up. And the same might be true in my case after I read a question from the audience. We do have two timers with us. We have Louise Anderson and Barbara Norman. And you want to show the candidates what you'll be holding up. There's a 1-minute sign and a 30-second sign. And a stop sign. And a stop sign. Barbara locally is called the Hammer, and Louise, we know her locally as the Enforcer. They will be taking a look at those. So, are we ready to get started? All right. Well, I believe the first candidate up for the opening remarks is Kevin Burke.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening. We appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I want to personally thank, I can see Earl in the back. Can everybody hear me? No. Can you hear me now? No. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? No. Time's up.
Loudly?
I will do my best.
You're going to do it.
It's working now. It's working. Right. Well, we'll just stand up for this then. See if you can project a little bit. First of all, I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters, Tribune Star, Vigo County Library, and the Exchange Club for providing this, not only this opportunity, but I want to say thank you for the format. The format is, we look forward to this and the opportunity to talk in length about the future of Terre Haute. There's nothing that I find more enjoyable than talking about what we've been able to accomplish over the last 3.5 years and what the future looks like. Because I've never been more encouraged about the future than I am right now. I was pretty excited when I ran in '03, and I was convinced that there was a great deal of potential for our community. But what the last 3.5 years have shown is that I underestimated us. And I thought I'd set the bar pretty high. But the community of Terre Haute has come together in a dramatic fashion, and in a partnership between the public sector doing what it needs to, the private sector stepping up and once again putting its money at risk, and we can see the results of that cooperation. We can see that result of renewed spirit in our community. And so I have looked forward to tonight, the opportunity to discuss with you about what we've accomplished, but more importantly, what we still feel that is unfinished and that is still before us and perfectly within our capabilities of accomplishing, should we be given a chance. I thank you for being here. It's an inspiration to see each and every one of you. Thank you.
My name is Duke Bennett. I'd like to be the next mayor of Terre Haute. My second go around, I came back for more. Everybody said, Duke, why would you want to do this? That's the big question. Why would I want to get involved in politics? But this is a perfect example of what this country is all about, is the ability to gather together and have a debate about the issues and then elect a candidate who you want to lead you into the future. I think it's extremely gratifying to see the large crowd that's here tonight. Obviously, you all have a vested interest in this community, and you're looking for the leadership to take us forward, and you came here tonight, you took your time to come out here tonight and listen to what we have to say, and I do really appreciate that. My vision for Terre Haute includes everybody in Terre Haute. I really feel that we need to move this city forward in a way that nobody's ever seen before, and I believe we can do that in many different ways. One of those ways is to unite the community to get involved with Terre Haute. We can't sit back and expect the government to solve all of our problems. It's about all of the community getting involved, whether it's cleaning up the city, whether it's economic development activity, whether it's just the delivery of city services and what we can do as citizens. The government's responsibility is to do those things that are chartered, especially the mayor's job, and that's to deliver city services. It's the development of infrastructure, and it's the delivery of those actual services and police and fire protection, etc. What I truly believe is that every penny that we spend needs to reflect back to the taxpayers that they get their money's worth. That we don't do anything with the tax dollars that don't benefit everybody in this room. My goal is to bring a balanced budget every year, is to spend every penny as wisely as possible so that you will all get a return on your investment. We won't be making any charitable contributions. We won't be doing anything with tax dollars that lead to someone else making money, but it actually leads to all of you being rewarded for your investment with your tax dollars. I have a lot of things to say tonight. It'll be an exciting time. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming out. Thank you.
And the first question will come from the League of Women Voters representative, Bianca Campbell.
Thank you. I have a little bit of a narrative before the question. I don't think that's me doing that. I know I have an electric aura about me, but anyway. Our question deals with sustainable communities. A sustainable Terre Haute will have a growing economy that provides equal opportunity for good jobs and a safe, healthy, high quality of life for current and future generations. A sustainable Terre Haute will protect its environment, its natural resource base, and the functions and viability of natural systems on which all life depends. The question is, please define what you believe the challenges are between our need for economic growth and development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs and our obligation to protect and preserve the environment. That's a mouthful.
Mr. Bennett, that sounds like a 2-minute response to me.
Well, there's a lot of different issues wrapped up in that one. I guess when you think about environmental stewardship and those things that what we can do. It comes back to that community effort I spoke of earlier. I do not believe that it's government's responsibility to solve all those problems for us. We need to do that together as a partnership. There's a lot of things that we could be doing. Some of it costs the taxpayers money. So I'm willing to venture out a little bit and say some things that sometimes people may say, well, I thought this guy was a Republican. I didn't think he believed in those kind of things. That's a myth. I believe that our goal here is to develop, create an environment where people are willing to come to Terre Haute and invest so we can create some good paying jobs. And there's a lot of things that we need to do to prepare for that. One of those things is infrastructure. We need low crime. We need low taxes. We need those things that make it enticing for people to come here. You can't just give them a handout. But when it comes to the environmental side of things, we have things to protect here. So it's very important that those kinds of industries and those life sciences jobs, as an example, or high-tech type jobs that are very clean industries, those are the kind of things that we need to pursue. Those are the good-paying jobs. Those are the clean industries. Those are the things that will get us where we need to be. We're never going to be an old industrial town again. So a lot of those things are in our past. We've got to look to our future, and the role of government is to deliver the infrastructure and the environment where people can make money and be successful, and that is the role of city government.
I believe you'll find that industry and the environment have been asked to cooperate already. And I do not see the growth of Terre Haute and the bringing here of jobs and environment at odds with each other. I'm very proud of the fact that we're moving ahead in a very significant fashion to eliminate the dumping of raw sewage into our river. In 1963, the city of Terre Haute saw fit, under federal mandate, to build a wastewater utility. We are now under IDEM's mandate to meet the Clean Water Act, and we're moving forward with that. But in the process, that makes us ever so much more in a position to attract business, because then business can come here knowing that we can efficiently and effectively treat their waste. Our growth of capacity at our wastewater treatment facility makes us a partner for growth, a partner for the jobs that we seek for our young people. There's a real difference. We can sit around and we can talk about growth, we can talk about it, we can make plans, or we can actually get in there and begin to do the work of repairing our infrastructure, making the improvements needed, and build for growth. Terre Haute has talked too long about what it needs and what it wants. I'm proud of the record that we have of getting in there and building for growth and doing the infrastructure improvements that will attract business. Business will not wait for us to get all that done on a promise.
Mr. Bennett, 30 seconds for a response.
It would be devastating if we hadn't taken the money that we've taken in so far to do the infrastructure improvements. That is the role of government. We should be doing that. It's above and beyond that. It has to do with how we're doing it and how we're treating the taxpayer. The sewage bills have quadrupled over the last 4 years. We are taking money in to pay for those infrastructure improvements. I'm more focused on using the edit money for what it's intended to be for economic development activity, and that would be things along the lines of industrial parks, high-tech industrial parks, or those types of investments that bring the right type of jobs.
We readily admit that the sewer rates were increased for the first time in 14 years. We readily admit that those rates have increased so that we can make long-awaited improvements to the infrastructure. I believe that when you have cars falling through the street in front of St. Anne's into your sewers, that you've waited long enough to raise rates and to make those improvements. I believe you've talked long enough about it and it's time to do it. I also firmly believe that when you raise rates and you increase your capacity and still have the lowest rates, sewer rates in the state of Indiana, you can still be very, very competitive, and we intend to be.
Thank you. You know, you can check everywhere in the state of Indiana. I travel all over Indiana, and I've met with lots of different people in lots of different areas and talked about these same issues. And our rates are not the lowest in the state of Indiana. There are other rates that are lower. They're doing things that are more modern with their sewage treatment plant. Our plant is only at 50% capacity right now. It has more to do with the infrastructure. And I think the example of a car going into the sewer is true. We do need to fix those. There's no doubt about that. But that's just a little bit over the top from the perspective of why we need to do it. The whole bottom line is to...
Mr. Burke, could you give us a rundown of those cities that have lower sewer rates?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are several. Now, the rates are going up in some of these cities. But Plainfield is one example, Plainfield. And they have a brand new sewer treatment plant over there that has no smell and is completely blocked from anybody to be able to see even what actually is there. And they have lower rates than what we do. Kokomo is getting close to us now. Those are the two that have come to the top of my mind. But there'll be others that we can talk about later.
Any response?
I believe you'll find that after a long time of not making maintenance improvements to our wastewater utility, I think you'll see in the very near future the culmination of a great deal of work. I can tell you that sitting on the desk of my wastewater utility director right now is a feasibility study that will move us forward in a fashion that we will lead the state. And there's one simple objective in this: odorless, hidden, with the capacity to grow to where we will not be hindered in bringing the jobs to Terre Haute.
Any follow-up beyond?
Okay, I guess I have a follow-up question. This is off the top of my head. That we talked about infrastructure and the need to update and improve that. But I'd like you to think a little further outside of the box as far as when I'm thinking environmental and not compromising the abilities of what we do today for our future generations. I'm thinking also about the trees, the recycling, having a better upfront appearance for those who are driving through or want to actually possibly reside here. What do you propose to do to initiate or have those incentives?
Let's go with a minute on that one and go still. Since this is supposed to be a follow-up question, we'll keep with Mr. Bennett on this.
Thank you. You know, once again, it's a community effort. We've got to get people involved, and Trees Inc. do an excellent job as an example of bringing trees to Terre Haute. That's their mission. We've got to partner with them to continue to do those kinds of activities. When it comes to cleaning up Terre Haute, that's another example of partnering with local people to make that happen. We need to bring back Brush Up Terre Haute. That's the role that government can assist with that. That we get people engaged and proud about the community and want to contribute. We can't just sit back and expect the taxpayer just to pick up the trash, in essence. I mean, we've got to not have the government be funded to do that. What we've got to do is get people engaged in the process, excited about Terre Haute, and contribute from their own little piece of their world. Thank you.
Mr. Burke, 1 minute.
I think it's very important for us to understand that 600 city employees cannot pick up after 60,000 employees, and that's what a Brush Up Terre Haute consists of, is actually the city having to pick up after a great deal of people that are unwilling to take advantage of the services that are already provided. What it's going to take for recycling and for us to move into the 21st century is a renegotiation of our trash contract, and for us to begin doing the very things that have been accomplished in other cities. Once again, we can sit around and talk about these changes, or we can do the process of bringing these changes about. I also want to say that updating of our comprehensive plan and effective land use, those are keys to us being environmentally friendly. I think it's also important to note that when Duke says that we need to be more cooperative with Trees Inc., we'll put this administration's effort with Trees Inc. up against anyone.
Any response? All right, well, the next question then will come from Mark Bennett. You realize we have two Bennetts up here, so I'm trying to keep everybody straight. This will be Mr. Burke's question here, so.
And for the record, Duke and I are not related. That's his brother off the voice out. An incumbent's record is always a key issue in an election campaign. I would like for both of you to assess the administration's record over the past 3.5 years. To get this discussion started, rate the administration's overall performance by assigning a grade from A to F and give specific reasons why that grade is warranted.
2 minutes.
Well, I realize that on November 6th we'll take this test pass-fail. I would like to say that I will not apologize for hard work. I will not apologize for doing a job well. And I will give this administration the grade of an A, based upon our ability to attract and retain some of the most creative, talented, and gifted department heads that this community has ever seen. They've been able to do things on their own without having to dramatically impact our revenue streams, and they have been able to produce a great deal of improvement in our community. It's not just about electing a mayor, it's about electing the individual that can attract and retain a team of people that can produce city services at a level that the people in this room and in all of Terre Haute deserve. I'd like to go down through each and every department and give each department a grade, because there's things that we've done very well and there's things that we still need to improve upon. But I believe that I feel that we've done more than a passing job, and given the opportunity, we can continue to improve each and every day.
Mr. Bennett, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I would rate this administration as about probably a B. And the key to that is, and would be with any administration that would come into office, that over the last 4 years, this administration has had over $27 million in income tax money to be able to spend on improvements. If that money would have been available to the last administration, we may still have the previous administration in place, because they would have been able to spend that money also on things. But we're talking about $27.4 million above and beyond your property tax money over the last 4 years that allows you to do those things. And that's what we should be doing with that money. I don't disagree with the use of money to build infrastructure, but that allows an administration to do a lot of stuff when you've got an extra $27 million to spend. The key to this is how you spend the money. We've done a lot of good things. I'm not going to say that we haven't done some good infrastructure improvements, but we've done some things that I disagree with. Some investments in the private industry and the not-for-profit that I don't believe lead to good paying jobs. The key is good paying jobs. If we make an investment of taxpayers' money, we've got to have a return. Having shiny new buildings downtown look great, but they don't deliver anything except minimum wage jobs. We've got plenty of those. The record on economic development is, our unemployment rate is just the same as it was under the previous administration. We've not gained any ground on that. It's got to be about good jobs. Thank you.
I certainly understand that you would disagree with some of the decisions that we've made. I mean, that's the basic premise of making decisions. Some are going to be pleased and some are not going to be pleased. But we stand by our record. When you can invest the money that we have downtown and get a return on that investment, not only in infrastructure that will in turn stay on the tax rolls and increase it dramatically, the amount of revenue that the city has to work with, but it'll also, I would like for you to tell all the construction workers out there that those are minimum wage jobs.
All right. I'm hearing word that some of you in the back are having trouble hearing. Is that correct? Okay, so if you could try to speak up some more. 30 seconds, Mr. Bennett.
Okay,
I wish it could.
I don't know, can you hear me this way? I mean, all right. Okay. Well, let me go ahead and answer.
You got that wireless, right?
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. These construction jobs that we have are great, but they're just temporary when it comes to those kind of investments. We've got to have long-term growth in this community. I work with construction, I work with unions every day. That's what I do at Hamilton Center. I've personally been involved with projects with about $10 million over the last 3 years of building projects throughout West Central Indiana. I understand their plight completely. And I've got union guys coming to me all the time telling me that their jobs are being taken away by non-union labor. So my argument is, I don't care who's working, we want them all to work, but the issue is not about the unions. Thank you.
Can I say something real quick? Could you randomly select the cards instead of going through and reading them and then letting them check which ones they want to ask?
No, they're all there.
The ones you're reading them and putting some that you don't want to do.
Mr. Burke.
We're talking once again about preparation for growth. Preparing for growth is more than just one thing. Yes, there is downtown. Yes, there is infrastructure. There is the development of the city's ability to deliver its services, growing the city IT network from 20 people to over 400 people in the last 3 years. Those are the types of things that have to be done so that not only the community is prepared for growth, but also that we can keep up with that growth and deliver it.
That is a good point about the IT technology. Now, I had written a strategic plan for the information technology for the city of Terre Haute, and I know I was on the data processing board. I was appointed by the previous council, and that is a strategic thing. And the growth there has been, that's a good investment of taxpayer money to be able to help with communication and do those kind of things. So I agree with that 100%. What we've got to do is to make sure that we keep focused on the target, and the target is keep our taxes low, keep people working, and grow this community. We've had
follow-up questions.
I would have follow-up. You mentioned the pay level of the jobs. We're specifically talking in this instance to the references that were made on downtown jobs. I would ask if those jobs that are coming out of the hotels are not up to the bar that need to be where it needs to be, what sorts of jobs in the downtown district would meet that?
You go first? Yes.
Well, I believe that we need to not forget that the number one employer in the city of Terre Haute is Indiana State University. And I believe that downtown enhances our ability to grow that number one employer. So I believe that our efforts downtown will dramatically pay us back through growth of our number one employer and also through our ability to attract the very businesses that are being mentioned here. You're not going to attract high-tech, life sciences, high-paying jobs if people feel like that they are being sent to a community that's a penalty. We have to be attractive to attract.
In a way, it's a chicken or the egg, because you've got to have good paying jobs for people to be able to come downtown and spend money. Downtown's always going to be kind of a retail, or in this case lodging, museums, those kind of activities, but people have to have the money to be able to spend to come downtown to help those businesses. You need to keep in mind that 80% of the people that are in the workforce work for small business, not large businesses. So a lot of these folks are dependent on people having disposable income to spend downtown, and right now they don't. And so that's part of the reason why we're struggling with rebuilding downtown. Thank you.
My only comment to that is that I've yet to see a college student that doesn't have some disposable income. I think it's also important for us to remember that the per capita retail sales in Vigo County is 3 times the state average. This is not about just us bringing our dollars into downtown or our money and churning our dollars over and over again. This is about us bringing external funds into our community as well. As long as we
I would agree that we are a retail destination, and that's fine with me, that that's part of our niche. You know, that's good. What bothers me is that Indiana State is shrinking. They've lost thousands of students. It's not nearly the biggest impact as it was in the past, which is very unfortunate. I'm hoping they can turn it around with the new president and a new strategy. That would be great. But right now, it's shrinking, and that is an issue for the future. Thank you.
And I believe we've uncovered at least a component of why that shrinking is taking place. The city of Terre Haute and Indiana State University have never been partners. And we are enjoying a partnership that takes a lot of work. But just today, we were able to be on campus and cut the ribbon on mass transit, and us being able to partner with this Indiana State University to bring mass transit to the campus. And when we're talking about $3 fuel, air quality attainment status, these are the type of partnerships that we need.
It's very important that we have partnerships with everybody in the community, and the ISU is a key component of what we have here. There's no question about that. The idea, though, about how we spend our taxpayer money to do that is what's important. That parking garage costs $14 million. I'm not saying it's not a good idea, because I can't find anywhere to park when I go to the basketball games. But as you look back, I think we'd have been a little smarter if we'd have built that one first and not built the other one where it's at. So now that we have 2 parking garages. Perspective, I'm not blaming on this administration, just the thinking and how we go about doing those things. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bianca?
Oh, I get to ask another one.
Yes.
Woohoo! Okay. Okay, we're going to talk about residential development. Last March, the city announced a new program to stimulate residential construction in the city's older neighborhoods. Incentives were offered to developers to construct new residences. Please discuss the effectiveness of this program and what other programs you would like to institute.
2 minutes, and we will start with Mr. Bennett.
I support that concept. There's a lot of empty lots in town. Part of the problem is people can't afford their property taxes. And I know people, I'm not going to try to beat that to death, but you need to understand that I deal with people in this community every day through my job that can't afford to even put a meal on the table half the time. They're not able to live in good housing. They're living in substandard housing. If they're in rental properties these days, we've had 500 foreclosures since the beginning of the year. We have more houses that are going to be torn down, more houses are going to be abandoned because one thing that I've noticed here recently is people who own rental properties, they're not making any money. There's no profit margin anymore with the tax rate going up. So they're beginning to get out of that business. And as we move forward, we've got to find a way to put new housing back in. I know that at 14th and Chestnut, a couple of new homes were built, $90,000 homes. They can't sell them. Who wants to buy a $90,000 home at 14th and Chestnut and pay high property taxes on it when the rest of the neighborhood's not up? It's the chicken or the egg thing again. What we've got to do is get people to invest their private money and not expect the government to invest money. Well, what the government can do are things to help some of these folks that can't make it on their own, but if we can bring good jobs where they can make it on their own, they will buy housing, they will contribute to the tax base, they'll be able to spend money downtown, they'll be able to do all those things that make the economy work. Not government-driven, market-driven. Thank you.
Sure, 2 minutes.
I certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk about the effort to fill in and what we like to call to put back in the missing teeth in our neighborhoods. The idea that our neighborhoods need to dwindle down to where there's nothing left and we've torn everything down before we can go back in and rebuild them, it just takes too long. So we have worked 3 years with the Home Builders Association, with the Realtors Association, and I'm very excited to say that we've had 3 homes built this spring by the private sector. The only thing that we contributed to this is we facilitated this process by putting the property available to them, waiving a few fees, and improving the infrastructure. Now, if you want to talk about success, then we need for people to see that they have the opportunity to go into these neighborhoods, buy some homes, and bring back these neighborhoods. I want to reward the people that have stayed in their homes in these neighborhoods. You can drive down the streets and see them. You can pick them out. I want to reward those people by filling in the missing teeth. And this is the reason that we've implemented the program that we have. And I believe that as momentum builds, we're going to see more and more of the private sector, as the need to find building sites continues to grow, that we're going to see this come to fruition, and we're going to see the missing teeth put back in our neighborhoods. I'm extremely hopeful, and I don't think it is a chicken or the egg concept. We're going to put the houses back in there.
Once again, what's important is getting people in good quality housing, and they have to be able to afford it. So that's the bottom line. I do appreciate the efforts that the Department of Redevelopment are doing with these lots. There's no question about that. But what we've got to do is get people to be excited about this community and make those investments without government prodding them along. They should want to do it because this is the place to be. And I believe that there is a lot of potential to do that in the future, but it has to do with how we manage the tax rate and how we manage the growth and the activities that are carried out by the city government. Okay.
I do want to, at this point, mention something about tax rates and taxes. There's 2 ways to lower taxes. You can cut city services, or you can increase your assessed value by growing the community of Terre Haute and spreading those city services efficiently over more people and reducing the property tax. I have watched what we've attempted in the past, and it failed. Attempting to be the cheapest place that didn't take care of its infrastructure, that didn't invest in ourselves, gave me the opportunity to be mayor. We're not going to continue to make those mistakes. We're going to grow Terre Haute.
I agree 100% that there's 2 ways to do it, but I went through the city budget here recently and I found about $3 million that I can cut out just like that. So there are things that we need to do to reduce the expenses. And I'm not saying that I would go cut that money out of there, but I think there's other things that we can do to accomplish the delivery of those services. But you gotta have a low tax rate. You look at any community that's growing, they have a low tax rate. And I'll use Plainfield as an example again. They had $20 million left over in their budget last year because of their growth. Their tax rate is very low. Carmel has an extremely low rate. It can be done. Thank you.
I believe Plainfield and Carmel are 2 excellent examples of communities that have made the decision to invest in themselves. And they made the decisions early on that they wanted to grow. And they decided that they wanted a community they could be proud of, and they made the investments early on, and they continued to follow that. They've not sat around and said, there's $3 million that we can cut, but I wouldn't cut. I believe that's what you just said. So, what $3 million in cuts have you identified that you wouldn't make?
Yes.
Well, we can start with the subsidies for the golf courses at $800,000 a year. I appreciate the people that are golfing, but for me as a taxpayer, to kick in at $800,000 a year so people can play cheap golf is not the approach that I want to take as mayor. Another issue would be to do with the bus service. Bus service is very important. We need to maintain that bus service. But we have to find ways through advertising or other creative ways to help support that and not just continue to another $1 million to support the bus service at ISU.
I appreciate you bringing up mass transit. Our efforts at Indiana State are going to enable us to increase ridership, and with increased ridership increases our ability to fund the very mass transit that we've spent 3 years trying to bring from something that just runs around with empty buses to something that has a viable future. A growing and prospering community must have mass transit. We cannot allow it to go away. Too many of our people depend on it to get to their jobs and to get to shopping. Now that we can either talk about things in nice platitudes about what we oughta, shoulda, coulda, woulda, or we can make the changes and we can implement the changes, and even if they're wrong, we can stop, readjust, and continue to move forward.
Bianca, any follow-up?
Okay, my follow-up would be with regards to landlord-tenant laws and affordable housing. And what direction do you see Terre Haute taking to initiate some form, and if they're on the books now, how can we implement those or perfect them for low income or minimum wage homeowners, renters, I should say.
Mr. Bennett, one thing.
Well, obviously we should be enforcing all the laws that are on the books, and I would assume that we are doing that. The key is, we can't just sit back once again and expect us to write more laws and then people to comply. Some of this stuff's a little bit more complex than that. It's getting these folks that live in this substandard housing, as an example, some kind of support system where they can actually have a job, where they can afford to move out of that housing and get their own home and take care of that home. But we need to do those things that help facilitate people wanting to improve their own properties, creating their own environment of where people want to rent from them. And the only way to do that is have an incentive of being able to have good city services at a fair price so they can make money with this housing. That's where the key is with the rental properties. So I wholeheartedly support enforcement and any tweaking of that in order to do those things that can't be done any other way. But let's look at it from a perspective of helping these owners to improve their property and be able to reinvest in themselves, and right now they can't do that.
Let me say to you that we do have the ordinances on the books and they are being enforced. I have a couple of EPD officers sitting right back there that literally worked thousands and thousands of cases over the last 3 years. But I submit to you folks that there is one individual that can bring all of these people into compliance far more than the mayor, the EPD, or all of us combined, and that's your city judge. We take these people to court, we line them up, and it's through the city. We are not the judicial arm of city government. The city judge is the one that determines whether these people come into compliance or not. We're going to do our part to make sure substandard housing is removed from the marketplace. We're going to do our part by citing and bringing these people to court, but you need to support your city judge and express to him that you want these properties brought into compliance, and he has the capacity to do that.
Okay. Mark, next question, and starting this out will be Mr. Burke.
Indiana is embroiled in a discussion over a large increase in property tax bills in the past year. The governor points to local government spending as a key reason for this increase. Do you agree or disagree with the governor's position? And how do you believe the city of Terre Haute's budgeting and spending practices are impacting property taxes?
Let me begin by saying that I vehemently oppose and disagree with the governor's assessment of why property taxes have been impacted. The city of Terre Haute can increase the demand upon your property taxes for 2008 by 3.7%, and that is it in its entirety. I believe that this administration has taken your tax dollars, leveraged them like we've never leveraged them before, identified multiple revenue sources so that we can do the things that you're seeing. We can only impact your property taxes by the state maximum levy. That's state law. So for 2008, a whopping 3.7% increase is what your city's been given. Now, look at the rest of your property tax bill and you ask, where does all this other money go? It's on your tax bill, folks. Research it. A great deal of your money is going to other entities other than your city and its services. And I am perfectly willing to put the city services and our delivery of those services up for evaluation. The amount of value that you get from your city services for your portion of the property tax bill compared to what you get from the other portions of your tax bill. Property taxes is a state problem. The state has dramatically impacted us and our property tax bills. And actually, the city of Terre Haute and Vigo County is about average. You can find horrific cases all over the state, far worse than us.
Very good question, Mark. The first budget put together by this administration was $44 million. The 2008 budget is $56 million. So we've increased the budget that much over these last 4 years. So to say that we don't have any impact is a little bit misleading. When I look at my tax statement, 44% of what I pay on my house goes to the city of Terre Haute. It's almost half. So over $2,000 of what I pay on my house goes to pay for city services. So I think that's a significant amount. Now I clearly understand the reassessment and the whole thing in Indianapolis is all screwed up. I mean, I'll be honest with you, that is a big mess. I don't like property taxes at all. If we could do away with them, that would be great. I can live with sales tax, income tax, but if you don't pay your property tax, you lose your house, that's bad. What we've got to do is quit raising the property tax. We've raised the maximum levy every year that this administration's been in office. We go right up to the maximum amount that we can possibly take, and then we figure out a way to spend it. That's the wrong approach. Kokomo is another example. Fort Wayne, Anderson, and Indianapolis all cut their budgets this year. And those mayors in those cities said, we want to do something for the taxpayers. Give them a little relief during this time of crisis. That's what I would do as mayor.
I think it's significant that we point out that growth in the budget does not mean a growth in property taxes. If you've been successful in leveraging your money and finding exterior funding sources, whether they be federal earmarks, grants, etc., that additional revenue has to be budgeted. We're bound by state law. We can't spend money unless we put it in a budget. So budget growing does not mean that your property taxes have been affected more than the state levy. And I'll also say that this administration has enjoyed the smallest increases in that levy in the last 25 years. 20 years prior to this administration coming in, it was standard 5%.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's a statewide problem, there's no question, but we can work within our local communities to help provide some relief. It still boils down to how much are you going to spend. In a city of Terre Haute that has lost 25,000 people over the last 30 years, and we're spending $56 million a year basically to serve 57,000 people who live here, that's almost $1 million. I mean, when you think about it, you break that down, it's a phenomenal amount of money that we're spending for our population, when you look at 57,000 people and we're spending $56 million, it's just amazing that we don't find some way to either deliver more for less or cut some stuff out that just doesn't make sense to do.
And I readily admit that while we're in catch-up mode and while we feel that we are still behind our competitors in attracting the very jobs that our young people want and the opportunity that they want, we're going to continue to not follow the practices of the past and try to figure out a way to not do the work. We are going to take the resources that are available to us and work hard to bring the growth to Terre Haute that we need. Otherwise, we will not have the opportunity available to our young people and us be able to keep your children and grandchildren here.
Every penny we can get out and then find a way to spend it.
I would encourage, Duke, I'd encourage you to point out where we've grown the size of government. Budgets that grow because you're doing projects and that you have to fund those projects is certainly your budget's going to grow. As I said earlier, if you locate and procure the money from exterior sources, you have to run that through a budget. I believe that you'll find that we have become we've added efficiency to city government. And I firmly believe that it's through growth of the assessed value and not growing the city government by an equal amount that produces the tax cuts that we want. I can say that it's very clear that you said that there's no instance where there's been taxing into prosperity. I can also tell you that it's quite clear that what we've done in the past didn't work because there were 72,000 people in Terre Haute when I came here, and I think it's high time that we went back to growing.
We need to grow this community, there's no question about that. But I can tell you right now that people are making decisions. They like the improvements, but once again, when you've got $27 million to spend, you can do things. It allows you to do lots of things. The key is we've got to offset the property tax side of that. We've got cadged money and headed money. We've got to provide some relief to the taxpayers. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
Well, I certainly would encourage you to let me know exactly how you can take cadged and headed money, reduce property taxes, and then have the revenue that you speak of to do the projects that you want to continue.
I'm not talking about doing all of it. I'm talking about providing some relief to the taxpayers. Very clear answer. I'm committed to infrastructure improvements. We don't have to do them all today or tomorrow. We can spread some of these projects out over the course of a year to a year and a half. We can provide some relief to the taxpayers, keep people here, keep the tax base growing, but it's going to take an ability to put it on paper so people understand what we're doing as a community.
Let me say, in us doing all these projects over the last few years, I can identify for you the number one most costly component to all of our projects: waiting. If you really want to do what's best for the taxpayers, if you want to be really, really responsible to the taxpayers, we will not spread these out over decades. Because every year that we wait, currently, if we delay a project a year, you can count on it costing the taxpayers about 25% more money. The most expensive thing that we're doing right now, that our potential problem would be to wait.
We do have some questions from the audience that we would like to get to, and some of these are pretty specific. I'm going to have to, I guess, interpret what some of these means, but I have one. Do you have something? All right.
There was a question about that we were combining the questions and not taking them randomly. I want to address that. we're doing that, looking at the questions ahead of time, because there are a lot of duplicate questions. We want to group them together so that all in the same area will be asked. We won't get 4 or 5 of the same questions being asked over and over again. Also, there are no personal attacks on the candidates. We want to make sure there are no personal attacks. We are not editing the questions for content or questions, but it's merely a way to group them and to assure that that as many questions as possible get to be asked.
We'll start with Mr. Bennett on this question. This is a very specific question, and I guess I'm going to have to interpret a little bit as what it means. Here's literally what it says. Is the mayor responsible for raising property taxes? And I'm assuming here that we're talking about the office of the mayor and not any mayor in particular. So is the mayor responsible for raising property taxes?
The buck stops at the mayor's desk and what budget is presented to the city council. Of course, the city council has to approve that budget, but the mayor is the one that presents the budget, and they work with that particular budget. So obviously, the mayor has an impact on property taxes, yes.
All right, response.
I concur that the mayor's impact on property taxes falls within the statutory limits of the state of Indiana, and as I have said earlier, for 2008, that's 3.7%.
All right, thank you. This one will start with Mr. Burke. We have evidently a person out there who is frustrated by some of the names of the streets in our community. Want to know if in any future improvements, whether streets with double names, not the streets themselves, but will the double names of some of these streets be eliminated? This person, I can't quite read all of this, but it says the business suffers when customers try to find where and how to go, and they become frustrated. Will you both pledge to remove double names from street names?
Well, I can certainly say that there is a difference between Jackson Boulevard and I can say that there's definitely a difference between Jackson Boulevard and Jackson Street. We understand that those things occur. Part of this occurs when developers put in streets and they're brought in. I believe that if you'll make those needs known, certainly we can go through either area planning or the city council, and we can make appropriate changes. That's not a difficult task to accomplish.
I would concur that we should do everything we can to keep things simple. So on an issue like that, you should bring it to your elected officials to get that problem resolved. I don't know exactly what you're talking about. I think I might have a couple things in mind, but I think that things can be done to make it clearer, and we can deal with that with the council.
All right, this one concerns campaign practices. Do you feel that anonymous attack pieces serve a purpose in a political campaign? If not, do you as a candidate have an affirmative duty to disavow these attack pieces? And this one will start, I guess, with Mr. Bennett.
You know, campaigning and politics sometimes gets kind of ugly. I mean, that turns a lot of people off. Obviously, there's a great interest tonight, which is good, but you hear that from people all the time. They don't like negative campaigning. I am not a negative campaigner. I'm going to be about the facts. I'm going to be about what I think is best for Terre Haute. When people that support you, and I'm sure that every candidate has people that support them, that you just think, well, boy, I wonder what they're doing next. That can happen. When I ran last time, there were people that tried to help me. That made it very difficult for me at times. All I could do was distance myself from that. My campaign is being run clean. It's being run by the book. There are people that are opposed to the mayor now. There are people that are supporting the mayor now. Both sides of the aisle, both types of issues. Both people that are slinging things and they're not. I've got some stuff slung at me too. So I think it's all in the process and the system. You got to look beyond that and choose the candidate and focus on that instead of the mudslinging. Thank you.
In January of 2003, I was told that I had no chance of being mayor if I refused to go negative in my campaign. And I said if I had to be negative in campaigning, if I had to raise all that money and talk about my opponents, they've made the price too high. I have far too many supporters, that have worked far too hard to get us to where we are, for me to spend that time and effort talking about my opponents. We will continue to campaign in the very fashion that we have, talking about the future, talking about our vision for Terre Haute. And I'll also say that the farther we can get down the road to where the personal attacks, the anonymous, nasty comments that embarrass vast majorities of our community, the farther we can distance ourselves from that, the more our community is going to be something that we can be proud of.
Sometimes I think people, mean well, they're very passionate, but they have to just learn to work within the restraint of what's best for the community. And that goes with any election. I mean, I've seen this stuff for years. I've been following this for a long time. And I think what it's about is if we can get people excited about Terre Haute and get the right leadership in place, that a lot of that stuff will just go away. So that's where we're at today, is moving forward in a positive way. Thank you.
I believe a candidate is responsible for the type of campaign that he runs. I believe a candidate is responsible for how his name is used and who uses it. And I will stand on our past practices, and I will be the first one to step up and say, if someone is going to attack my opponent, then I will disavow that person, entity, group in the strongest terms. Duke Bennett is a fine gentleman that deserves respect, and no one that I have any control over in the remotest way will attack Duke.
I appreciate that, and the same goes with me. My campaign is being run, as I said earlier, by the book. When people do things that they don't make you aware of or do it on their own, there's not much I can do other than disavow it. So I just want you to know that when people do things, you've got to keep in mind that you can't control thousands and thousands of people who may have their own mind, but just remember that I would never do that, and I don't support that type of activity. Thank you.
Here's a question that deals with a pretty specific instance, and we'll start with Mr. Burke here when we get this out. Although the Terre Haute Children's Museum is a private nonprofit entity, how would the city work with the museum to make sure that they have a successful transition into a new facility?
When we were approached with the opportunity for the Children's Museum to come into fruition, and also to have a position along in being contiguous to our arts corridor and being downtown, and it in turn leveraging more development, we saw an opportunity for the edit dollars to be matched up on a dollar-to-dollar basis with private money that is donated. We saw a tremendous opportunity there to spend money and get a great return. And I personally believe that money invested in our young people through our Children's Museum and downtown will pay tremendous dividends. We can invest in our children during their adolescence, or we can talk to the sheriff about the amount of money that we have to spend when we lose them.
The Children's Museum is a tremendous asset in the community. I mean, there's no question about that. My concern is there's 300 plus other not-for-profits in town that don't get a handout from the city government. I know of lots of entities that could bring people to this community. There's other museums, there's other things that are going on. They're all responsible to raise their own money. And I've been part of many not-for-profits. I've served on numerous boards. I've been involved. I was on Lifeline, and being time we had to put money on the table to pay the bills. We had to raise our own money that way. My goal is to find ways for these people to be successful in the community. And I would be, as mayor, I would champion, I would partner with them, I would be on their board, I would help them raise private funds to do that. Using taxpayer money, I'd hook them up to the sewer, I'd waive those fees, I'd put their sidewalks in, I'd do those infrastructure improvements around their facility, but I wouldn't just write them a check to be used for their own benefit.
would like to go back to an earlier comment that you made, Duke, about the decision of how we use this money and how do we affect and use that money to where the largest number of people can benefit from it. I believe that the Children's Museum is a sterling example of how we can affect not only a large group of people, young people in our community, but we can do it for decades.
What's interesting is that the original plan was to have it up on 3rd Street, and my organization that I work for made a significant contribution to that, so it would be up there, so our kids from our alternative school could go to the museum. Moving it downtown is nice. I'm not opposed to having it downtown. I just don't like the fact that we made a contribution to them and they moved downtown when they could have been up on 3rd Street and they would have raised their own money, and that $1 million would still be used for all the taxpayers and not just one not-for-profit entity. I wish them well. I mean, I hope it's successful. I'm sure that it will be, but I wouldn't do that.
Once again, we saw this as an opportunity to move from a sign sitting on a vacant lot on North 3rd Street to a children's museum being built downtown, and us not going another generation without a children's museum that instead of our children going to Indianapolis to the children's museum, us having a children's museum right here in Terre Haute that not only our children can go to, that other communities can come to as well. I stand by the decision.
I would agree to disagree on that one. I wish them well. I hope it's very successful.
All right, thank you. This one we'll start with Mr. Bennett. What are your thoughts regarding the need or desirability of having a deputy mayor?
I think that is.
Yes, 1 minute.
That's an option. I'm not sure that with the size of the city and the responsibilities at this point that I would be adding another position to create a deputy mayor that would be making a significant amount of money. But once again, there could be some realignment or some things you could do within the organization to accomplish that without adding a position. So my approach would be to analyze and identify every single position in City Hall. As an example, I really believe we need someone in City Hall who is a community liaison person. We need someone who can work with the not-for-profits and the Terre Haute Neighborhood Partnership to do that activity. I'd much rather have a position like that than I would a deputy mayor, because I believe I could carry out those duties in my position as the city grows, and I think we would need to address that type of change.
Thank you.
I certainly want to compliment Pat Martin and his efforts in being a liaison with the neighborhood associations and his working as a city planner. Our cooperation with the neighborhood associations has worked very well, and I believe it's producing real results. On the question of the deputy mayor, Terre Haute's not ready for that yet. And I know certainly I'm not ready for that from the standpoint that I want to be there every day and know exactly what's going on with each of the departments and have that interaction with each one of the department heads. And a deputy mayor would basically add another layer between me and those department heads. And my management style is not one that would be conducive to that. And at this point, I don't believe that we're ready for it.
This question will start with Mr. Burke. As mayor, how would you work to retain and or attract the younger population?
Excellent question. We were on campus yesterday speaking to a leadership class at the School of Nursing. And we talked about this very subject. What's it going to take for the young people that we educate here, if we provide the opportunities for them, how do we get them to stay here? And let me just submit to you their suggestion. It was alarming to me the number of our college students that are leaving college tremendously in debt. School debt, I mean, their cost of going to school is being borne by them being in debt. And I want you to know that debt is staggering at times. I met a young lady yesterday that is $127,000 in school debt and has not graduated yet. She agreed she had a little trouble making up her mind. I said, obviously. But one of the most encouraging things that came out of that if we can find a cooperative partnership between industry, ISU, city even, that we can address and subsidize or incentivize that debt when they're right out of school to locate in Terre Haute, work in Terre Haute, those are the kinds of things that are going to attract them. Oh, I'm sorry.
You know, a few years ago, I used to work at Applied Computing Devices out with Rose Holman owns it now. It's Rose Holman Ventures out on 46. And we had a vision for a high-tech industrial park out there. Our focus was a little too much on our particular business, and we didn't focus on the industrial park side. But that would be a perfect example of having a high-tech park. And I know it's a certified park now, but there's no activity there. There's no effort from the community perspective to create an incubator environment for those high-tech jobs. We've got Rose Holman to create those type of jobs. That's just one example. There's other examples that are similar. My daughter will be graduating in 2 years from ISU, and the first thing out of her mouth is, well, let's see, where am I moving to? Indianapolis, somewhere where there's more going on. You know, I'm trying to work on her, so I know the issue is not just in my own home, but it's everywhere. People want to go where the action is. We've got to create that action here, and it's jobs. People have to be able to find a good job. If you can find a minimum wage job, that's what you got when you're in school. When you get out of school, you got to apply that degree and get a job. That's what our focus has to be, is to find those kind of jobs that will keep the kids here and raise their families.
I'm very encouraged by the cooperation between Rose Holman and ISU with their innovative alliance and their joint incubator. We were in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago. It looks like we're going to be able to secure federal funding to help support that innovative alliance between Rose Holman and ISU. These things are taking place. We're putting the foundations in, we're building the building blocks for growth. The one thing we can't do now, in my opinion, is slow down and stop the pace and stop the momentum.
And trust me, I won't slow down the momentum. There's some things that we can do without spending money to make those things happen. So those things ought to be continuing. There ought to be 10 or 20 things going on in parallel right now to accomplish those tasks without spending one penny of taxpayer dollars. There will be an investment at some point, but right now it's getting the ball rolling and get people on board in this community to support what we're trying to do.
What can we do without spending money? I'd like to hear that.
There's a ton of things we can do when it comes to partnerships and those types of things. I believe there's some political issues in this community that keeps us from moving forward. I believe that a two-party system will go a long way to getting Indianapolis to recognize Terre Haute as being on the map. Right now, the Democrats say, oh, the Democrats got it. The Republicans say, oh, the Democrats got it. We get nothing from Indianapolis. We get no attention whatsoever. Those are things that won't cost a penny. It's all about relationships, attitudes, and how you work with other people.
The Republican governor has been to Terre Haute more times than any governor in our past, in our history. Our relationship with Indianapolis, I believe, is better than it's ever been. And I certainly isn't there anything that we could do that we wouldn't be spending any money. I can tell you folks that Indianapolis does know that we exist. They do know we're here, and I can tell you, around the state, people are asking continually, what's going on in Terre Haute?
The reason why the governor's over here is because the mayor signed on to major moves. He was one of the first persons to do that. And that was a big, big thing for the governor. I don't agree with everything that Governor Daniels is doing. So I'll just be perfectly honest with you. There's some things he's disappointed me with. But I talked to people in Indianapolis. I talked to both Democrats and Republicans in leadership. And they just don't have to worry about Terre Haute. They worry about other cities when it comes to all these leads that we get. Terre Haute doesn't get on that list. Everybody else is getting these leads. I know. I've talked to the people over there. I know what's happening. We've got to change that. Thank you.
Well, Duke, I would encourage you to let Steve Witt at the Economic Development Corporation, once you give some names and facts and some people that would be able to come forward and admit to that Terre Haute's being shut out. I think that would be a good thing for you to do.
Any response? Thank you. Here's a question, and we'll start with Mr. Bennett. Probably a minute on this one. Would you advocate an expansion of the city limits south to increase our property tax base, especially the Honey Creek area and many subdivisions that are currently outside the city limits?
No, I don't support any annexation at this point at all. I think we need to maintain what we have. We need to get things up to where we need it to be before we even consider that. I believe there would be a huge fight with the county if we decided to annex that money, and they would lose that money, and it would come over to the city side, because then they would have to cut their services or cut their resources and their staffing even more. I don't think that benefits anybody. Annexation should benefit both the taxpayer and the government entity that is pursuing that, and I don't believe that's a smart move at this point in time. No.
I was asked this question in 2003, and I've been asked this question repeatedly since then. My answer remains the same. Until the city of Terre Haute is caught up and has its infrastructure and its city services at a level that it's appealing, and we're providing more value than the people in the county have, our work's not done. I believe that annexation basically works best when you are asked to come into the city by the subdivision. And our goal is to create enough of momentum and to create a level of service and a value that people will ask to be annexed, and that's our goal.
Thank you. We'll start this question with Mr. Burke. The community needs more good-paying jobs, say $14.50 an hour or more. How many of these good-paying jobs have been created or lost over the past 4 years, and what could either of you candidates as mayor do to create more good-paying jobs?
Let me begin by saying that the only jobs that a mayor can actually create are ones that is when he hires people in city government. The mayor's job is to create an environment where the private sector feels like that it's a good investment. The private sector feels like that they can put their money at risk and get a good return on that. When I go back to a statement that I made earlier, for far too long, Terre Haute has talked about growth and talked about doing those things. And we've not allowed ourselves to remain competitive. We have a great deal of work left to do, and we are not as competitive as we can be or as we need to be. Because I believe in the people of Terre Haute, and if we're given an equal opportunity on a level playing field, we can compete and we can get those good paying jobs. But we cannot talk about them, we've got to build for them.
1 minute.
As I've said previously, it's not the mayor's responsibility to be the chief economic development person. There's no question about that. It's a community effort. It's the county government, it's the city government, it's the Terre Haute Economic Development Corporation, it's the chamber, it's everybody. And we need to work together to accomplish those things. What's tough is we have to do it in a way that really delivers something. And we have to put a plan together that brings something. We can't have a big grandiose plan that doesn't ever get implemented, which has happened years and years ago. We can't implement something that really just build it and they will come mentality either. You got to find a happy medium. There has to be a way, and I know there's a way, but what I'm saying is there has to be a way to get everybody in this community engaged in the process. And right now we're not doing that. And what I mean by that is every single person here needs to be a salesman for Terre Haute. We all need to do our little part to make this community a place where people want to be, they want to bring their companies. It's going to be low taxes, it's going to be good infrastructure, it's going to be low crime, it's going to be a multi-party political system, it's going to be all those things will lead to economic development.
Economic development will take place when business sees that they can come here and become profitable quicker than they can elsewhere. We're going to have to do all of the normal things that all of our competitors do. But we're going to have to be able to deliver the product in a fashion that, because that's the way we compete and win. If we have a company come here and they can become profitable faster than another site, they're going to come here. And once again, I'll go back. The people that they bring with them cannot feel like that they've been punished. And I agree with Duke on this one. If they come to town and all they hear are our people saying, oh my goodness, what did you do wrong? Because you get sent to Terre Haute. You're not helping us. You're not helping us grow. Thank you. But I think that's changing, and I do hear, you know, the people that are the most encouraging to me are the people that have just been here the last few years.
All right, 30 seconds. Anything else? All right, well, I think it's time for concluding statements and keeping with the order that we set up. Yes. Another sentence? Okay. All right, then, if we can go with some further ones then. Let's see, we would start, let's see, with Mr. Burke, I guess. When awarding city contracts, do you plan to use local contractors as mayor? About a minute.
Absolutely. One of the things that we first did in becoming mayor is we changed how consultants are chosen. That's done through committee. I can tell you, after 3.5 years, I have not chosen the first consultant. Contractors are done through lowest and best bid, and in that deciding process, even with professional services, we have a weighting system in there that the closer, if they're a local entity, they gain points in the evaluation process, and the farther away their headquarters is or their local office, the less points that they get. We have made it very clear that local business, we want to spend that money here. Now, we've also made it clear that local businesses have to give us their best effort. And that's what we need, that's what we're getting. If we spend our money with somebody that picks it up and takes it out of town, that doesn't help us at all. And I'll put this administration's track record on requiring people to be local and putting offices in here up against anyone.
To use local labor, there's no question about that, and my efforts would all be revolving around that. I would want to buy all the goods and services, not only that kind of contractor work, but everything that we purchase, buy locally. There's some things you have to deal with, you know, outside of Terre Haute because of pricing or ability to deliver, but we should always have that focus. We should be bidding things out. We need a central purchasing system within the city, so we're getting the discounts that we need on everything instead of letting each department buy their own stuff and negotiate their own things. When it comes to contractors, if we can build them up by giving them city work, then that makes perfect sense. It's a win-win situation. And I believe that is occurring with this administration. I won't disagree that we're using more local labor. We just need to continue to feed that, because remember, 80% of the people work for small business out there, and most of these folks are working in small business. We can build the economy by getting more people jobs, getting better opportunities here with some of the organizations that are already here and businesses versus trying to land the big one that a lot of people are waiting on. So, thank you.
The greatest testimony we have is from one of our local businesses and industries expand, and we've seen that take place over the last 3 years as well. And so it is that commitment. And one of the things that our contractors and our local businesses are wanting to see is sustainability. And I believe that it's key for them to know that the improvements and the progress and the momentum that they're seeing can be sustained. And we can meet with them and reassure them that if they'll invest and grow their businesses here in Terre Haute, what they're seeing now is sustainable.
I would agree that what's important is keep people working. And the union jobs in this town are very important because they're good paying jobs. And we're losing those jobs because of lots of different reasons that are beyond the scope of what the mayor can do. But the key is having activity where people do want to come and invest in Terre Haute. And I think that's where we can really add the jobs and reduce that unemployment rate. Thank you.
A number of these questions are for specific candidates, so since it's Mr. Bennett's turn to start, I'll go ahead and read this one and we'll let you start on this in 1 minute. Since Mayor Burke has been criticized for spending money fixing the streets and sewers, and 3 mayors have previously promised to do it, how would you have done things differently?
Well, I don't believe at one time tonight that I've criticized the mayor about spending money on infrastructure. I thought I made that very clear earlier, that I support infrastructure improvements 100%. That's what we should be doing. when you have $27 million to spend, you can get stuff done. I just question on some of the other side things that have been done. Not infrastructure, I'm good with that. We need new sewers, we need new streets. That's what's going to lead to the future. So if anybody got that message, I apologize, because that's not what I said.
All right, that's fine. All right, this would then be for Mr. Burke. Explain why the city of Terre Haute would want to build a skate park in Voorhees Park when there are known hazardous air pollutants in this area. A minute.
Well, first of all, you can't tell your young people to go skate somewhere else unless there's a good, clean, safe place for them to go skate. Our young people have made it very clear that this is important to them, and we feel that it's important that we provide that for them. Now, unfortunately, one of our industries in that corridor stopped making paper last Friday, and will basically send a lot of the remaining employees home at the end of this week. So two of the known pollutants, if anyone wants to use that as the term, we really only have one pollutant, and that's been made pretty clear. But the International Paper has been, International Paper decided to close their plant here, and so that one is gone. We've already discussed the improvements that are going to be made at the wastewater utility, and with the railroad tie factory being at absolute capacity, we continue. We've talked to 3 different owners in 3 years, and we still feel like that us finding a place that they can grow and not be landlocked would be a real answer to that. The skate park is something that's not related to the industry there.
Response? Yes.
I probably wouldn't have put it down there, but that's not the only reason. But I would just have make it more centrally located. That's just my thinking, just more of a common sense approach. And I don't know if we really need to spend the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I hate to keep using Plainfield as an example, but they were able to do it for $100,000. Greencastle was able to do it with no taxpayer dollars. They were able to raise the money locally. The thing is, we should have things in our neighborhoods for the kids to use. Kids aren't going to be able to travel from the north side of town to Voorhees Park. But I'm glad we're moving forward with it. You know, my son was one that wanted to have that. I mean, it's happening, so it's going to happen now. I just would have put it more centrally located. That's my only comment.
Response? This one is for Mr. Bennett. You said that the last administration did not have $27 million to invest like this administration has. Why did you run for mayor in 2003?
Yes, I'm not sure I understand the question exactly, but I'll work with it. Because there's a lot of things that I believe in that we can do differently. I think everybody in this room probably thinks they can be the mayor, they can make decisions. Some people just have the guts to step up and do it. I hear a lot of people talking. They tell me all the time, Duke, if you win, here's how you need to run this city. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff out there. Some people have to step up to the plate and actually do it. And I applaud the mayor for doing it last time. And I'd like to think that I did the right thing myself. That's why I'm doing it again. When it comes to the money, though, when I said that earlier, I mean, any mayor that would have that kind of money could make progress. They could do things. It's just how do you do it? That's the difference between us two. That's the only thing. Infrastructure, CADGET, debt money, those things are all set aside to be able to do those kinds of things, and I support that. So I ran last time, whether I'd have had that money or not. I was running because I wanted to be the mayor of Terre Haute, and I'm running again for the very same reasons.
30 seconds.
The question of 27 million additional revenue was a decision made by the county because they determined that the people of Vigo County had decided that they'd fallen far enough behind. And it was one of the few remaining counties that had not enacted income taxes. They decided to do that. It also comes down to a question of leveraging that money. You know, we've identified 18 different funding sources that we use to bring about the projects that you see and are enjoying. Over 10 of those were never used in our past. So it's about hard work, not just running around spending money.
And finally, this will be a question for Mr. Burke. Is there anything left in the rainy day fund? How much has been spent and on what hasn't been spent?
There is no, the balance in the rainy day fund is zero.
The question also asks what it was spent on.
There's never been a rainy day. Well, there's always been a rainy day fund, but it's never been funded. The previous catch-up, there's a catch-up payment from the state that was assigned to that, and we moved that into the general fund.
All right. I believe it's probably about time to make our concluding statements. This seems to be clicking. We will start with Mr. Bennett. These are 1 minute statements. 1 minute.
Well, once again, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I really believe that there's an interest, obviously. Everybody's excited about the election coming up. Whatever candidate you support, get behind them and support them. And, you know, we have to move forward. Whatever happens, we have to move forward. I just want to be the mayor of Terre Haute. I've always had that desire. I've been a part of this community my entire life. I was born and raised here. I plan on dying here. This is my community, and I want it to be something that I'm proud of, my kids are proud of, that everybody is. And I just really believe that I can deliver in a way that is taxpayer-friendly, common sense government. We can move forward. Don't buy into the fact that people say Duke's not progressive, he's anti-progress, he's against spending money. It's not that at all. I'm just one to spend wisely. Balanced budgets, spending where the taxpayers know they got their benefit, that's my bottom line, and that's all it's about. And when at the end of the day, then you can feel good about having an administration that's open, honest, ethical, and takes care of you as the taxpayer. Thank you very much.
I came to the people of Terre Haute 4 years ago, 2003, and asked them to be their mayor. I promised them that I would go to work every day to bring jobs, that I would clean up their city, and that I would work with our public safety people to provide a safe environment. I really admit to you that our work is not done, but I am daily amazed at the progress that we've been able to make. With your help, we can continue to move our community forward. We can continue to bring the progress and the prosperity that we long for. The very things that we all agree on. We do want our young people to have the opportunity to chase their dreams right here. And this decision on November 6th is about that future. With no apologies, I look at all of you and I simply ask for your vote. I ask you to vote for me and the team that we've put together so that we can continue to produce results for you and to continue to move our community forward. Thank you.
Most of our candidates for appearing tonight, and I would like to thank you as the audience for participating. And I've also been asked to make a couple of announcements. One, we have another mayoral debate, Meet the Candidates debate at Sarascott Middle School on October 16th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And the League of Women Voters and the Tribune Star will be sponsoring a City Council Candidates Forum on October 30th here at the library, presumably at 7 p.m. So once again, thank you for coming.